This lesson is on major scales and keys. I want to make sure that your screen is expanded, that the video is expanded to full screen so that you can see all of the illustrations. We'll start by talking about the major scale. A scale is a series of pitches that are in fixed order. Every time that you see a scale, the pitches will ascend or descend in the same order. For the purpose of this class, we'll just talk about pitches within the space of one octave. An octave is 8 notes, so the pitch that you start on will be the pitch that you end on. The pitch name, there'll actually be different pitches, lower and higher. So looking here, we're looking at a C scale, and you'll see that there's a low C, and then we step up all the way to a higher C. Notice also that we're in alphabetical order. So we started in C, the next letter in the alphabet is D, E, F, G, and remembering that our musical alphabet only goes up to G, just like on a clock. When you get to 12, you start over again at 1. When you get to G, you're going to start over again at A, and we'll go on up A, B, C. So every scale needs to start and end on the same letter name and needs to step up alphabetically. Taking a closer look, we're going to compare our scale on the staff to the keyboard. So here we have a keyboard laid out for us. And you can see that from C to D is a whole step. If you remember from one of our previous presentations, that whenever you step up to a black key, or the very next key, whether it's black or white, it's a half step. But if you go 1, 2, and then step to the next one, that's a whole step. So we'll put a W right here between C and D to represent that between these pitches, C and D, we have a whole step. Then we're going to take a look at D and E and figure out what goes in between them. So again, looking at our keyboard, we're going to go D to E, and we have another whole step because we skipped this black key in the middle. This black key in the middle, we can call it D sharp or E flat. So far we have a whole step and another whole step. Then we go E to F. We'll skip that for just a minute and go ahead and talk about F to G. So F to G, we also have a whole step. G to A, we have a whole step. And A to B, we have a whole step. All of those are easy to see because we're going from one white key to the next and skipping a black key in between. So we know that all of the white keys with black keys in between are whole steps. We also know that from E to F and B to C are only half steps because there's no black key in between. They go directly to the next one. So these are only half steps. So you can look back up here. All of our paths that we traced out between white keys were whole steps, except E to F and B to C, which are only half steps because there's no black key in between. What's going to happen is we're going to end up coming up with this formula, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. That's basically going to be the formula for any major scale, regardless of which pitch you start on. Here's our pattern. You can see it a little bit more clearly here. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Hard to say, but we easily represent that with just W's and H's. This is the pattern of all major scales. You can say it fast 4 or 5 times and it will help you remember the pattern. So just say whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Just kind of get that in your head, and then when you get ready to build scales or are trying to recognize whether or not you're looking at a major scale, Just remember this pattern, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Just take a few seconds and get that in your mind. Okay, so that is what C major looks like and sounds like. You're just seeing that they're demonstrating the left hand played it first, and now the right hand is playing it. So there's an application of taking this scale and listening to it and seeing what it sounds like. Now that you know the pattern, you can create a major scale on any note. The only major scale that uses all white keys and nothing but the white keys is C major. So when we start getting into other scales, we're going to need to use some of those black keys. And pitch-wise, we call those accidentals. Here's a scale built on F. So first of all, what we're going to make sure that we do is put all of our pitches on the staff. So we know that we need an F, G, A, B, C, D, E, and F. So first we would put each of those pitches on the staff. We're going to make sure that alphabetically each one is represented. And then we have a little note here, but something is wrong. So what we need to do then is take this scale and put our formula up against it, our whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, and see if this measures up. And we will find, if you recall from what I said earlier, that only C major has all white keys. That gives us a clue that one of these pitches that we're looking at is going to need to have a black key, have an accidental, to make this scale work right. In fact, if you had a keyboard available to you, or if you want to Google and pull up a virtual keyboard, you could try playing this F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, and you could tell just by listening to it that something was wrong with it. It didn't sound quite like a major scale should. So let's put in our pattern, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, and then what we'll do is we'll adjust the notes so that they fit this pattern. So now we have our pitches written out alphabetically. We have our pattern. The next thing we're going to do is have to go in to adjust these notes to make sure that they're matching the pattern. We can't change the F, that's the name of our scale, so this one and this one are going to remain anchored. We won't do anything to those. So we're going to begin at the bottom. We're going to work our way up. So remember that we're looking in between notes to see whether it's a whole or half step. So F to G is a whole step. We know that because there's a black key in between. And looking back up at our pattern here, that's what we need. We need a whole step. We need another whole step. So let's check out G to A and see if we have a whole step there. And we do, because again, we have a black key in between. Now, from A to B, according to our formula, we need a half step. Okay? So let's take a look here. From A to B, that is a whole step. So here we veered from our pattern and it doesn't fit. So if you know anything about fractions, you're just thinking a little bit in math terms, we know that a whole is bigger than a half. So if a whole step takes us over here to this B and we only need a half step, what should we do? How do we fix it? We have to keep our A. We determined that that was part of the pattern, but we need to do something to the B. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a flat sign which lowers a pitch, and we're going to use B flat instead. So now you can see we adjusted that. We put a flat here on the staff. We put a flat here in our alphabet name to designate that. Then we're going to go back to our formula and check it. So A to B we knew was a whole step, and we only need a half step, so we're going to use that B flat. So you can see that going from this white key to this black key is only a half step. Now that we have our half step in the right place, we're going to check the rest of the scale. So from B flat to C now we need a whole step. Let's see if we got it. Okay, so B flat to C is indeed a whole step, and let me take just a second to explain that to you. So far our whole steps have been in between, have a black key in between, and we could easily see that those are whole steps. If you remember from before, the E and the F and the B and the C are only half steps because there was nothing in between. Okay? These are adjacent keys, they're right next to each other. So from this B flat to this B is a half step, they're next door neighbors. And then this B to this C is another half step, they're next door neighbors. So jumping from this B flat to this C then gives us the whole step that we want. Let me go back just a second. Here we go. So then we're going to check from C to D, we have a whole step. D to E, we have a whole step. And then E to F, we have that half step that we need. So with that one adjustment of the B flat to C, and making sure that was a half step there, so we get our whole half, whole half pattern, then we have exactly what we need for our F scale. Here's the final result: F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. So here I have pulled up a keyboard so that we can look at the F scale. What I'm going to do first is play it without the flat, and then I'll play it with our adjustment of the flat so you can see why that was necessary. And here it is with the flat. So listen to the difference between the last part of the scale. And this part. Sorry, my computer's doing all kinds of other crazy things today. Let me start that again, starting with B flat. Here's the whole thing one more time. Good. And we'll keep that handy just in case we want to look back at it. Now you can see someone playing with their hands. Good. Now that person in the example was playing 2 octaves, so that's why you heard the scale twice and saw them going up the piano 2 different times and then down 2 times. Okay, here's one for you to try. You're going to build a major scale on D. So you should have a piece of staff paper. So what I would recommend that you do right now is stop the presentation, go into resources in the class, print out a sheet of staff paper and try it. So at least try it. Remember that you're going to put a low D on the staff, a high D on the staff, and then fill it in alphabetically. So you're going to go D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. Then you're going to plug in your formula, your whole, half, whole, half, and then compare your scale against it. When you've tried that, then just resume the presentation and we'll go on from there. Okay, so I hope that you tried your D scale. I have it here on the screen drawn out. D to D, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. And then here's the answer. We had to have an F sharp and a C sharp to make that pattern work. Here's one starting on B flat. Remember that you will not change the starting or ending note. So take a minute on your staff paper now to try a B flat scale. Here are the answers for that one. We need a B flat and an E flat to make that work. I'll give you just a minute to look at that and compare it to what you wrote on your sheet of paper. And if you need more time, just pause the presentation.